Halloween's one of my favorites. So I distinctly remember growing up from Halloween. We grew up in like this small town in Connecticut, and it was always just so cold and so crisp, and all of the like leaves were on the ground, and it smelled so good. Like, you know, the smell of like dried leaves on the ground, and it smelled so good. And I'd always be so excited to come home from school and get in my costume. But we would come home from school, we would carve pumpkins, like carve jack-o'-lanterns. And while we were carving pumpkins, Mom would always order pizza.
No.
So sometimes she would order. When we were younger. Yeah, she'd order while we were carving that, and we would eat pizza and then go out. Other times we would get dressed, go trick-or-treating, and then come back and watch like the old Frankenstein movies or things like that.
Order a giant cheese pizza.
Steaming
and it was
cheese
just
pizza.
like,
you were so cold from being outside. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. You could eat like your pizza and your Halloween candy.
I want that so bad right now. I just will fully admit I had never really helped with the pumpkin carving. Like,
no, you did not.
First of all, it felt like way too much effort to really like get in there and like saw the eyes out, and then like the goo inside. So that was definitely like you and Dad kind of tackled that.
I know. No, Mom was in there too.
Mom was in there. Yeah, Mom helped.
Yeah, you were just kind of like, call me when.
I drew like what I wanted you to carve for me, but I was like, Halloween is probably one of the best holidays out there.
It is one of the best holidays. It's so much fun. I just want to talk for a second about the skit that was at the beginning of this video. I know like it's funny, I know it's stupid, I know it's silly, but this was our reality for a really long time when we were stuck in like this yo-yo diet cycle. I vividly remember being, I think it was like high school, or it was like my first year in college, and we were like deep into like yo-yo dieting and that like horrible restrict and binge cycle. I remember eating like all of this candy, like Halloween candy. I was scrolling on Facebook, like Facebook had just come out or something, I don't remember. I think I was in college, so Facebook had just come out. I remember scrolling on Facebook and I saw this graphic of like, if you ate it, you need to negate it. Meaning that if you ate this candy, you need to go do exercise to burn that off. And it was like this chart to say, okay, if you ate one mini Butterfinger, you have to go do 80 burpees and that will burn enough calories to burn that off. If you eat a Snickers, you have to do like 20 minutes of running to burn off the mini Snickers. And I remember thinking in my head, I literally pulled out a piece of paper and I wrote down all of the pieces of candy that I had. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna literally have to exercise for like 2 hours to burn all of this off.
You see that everywhere. Honestly, like it's really sad, but like you even see that graphic circulating these days where like all these like bigger influencers or whatever, and they think it's like a fun, like nice thing, but it's actually really damaging, because what happens is you start to look at Halloween candy as like bad, and you shouldn't have it, and like especially if you're dieting, you shouldn't be having it. It makes you feel guilty for having it, because then you have to go do exercise as punishment for it.
Breaking that into a bigger discussion around like Halloween candy, you can swap out Halloween candy for really anything, right? Like Christmas cookies or Easter candy, even like Valentine's Day, like chocolates for Valentine's Day. And the reason why I think that people tend to overdo it or feel that guilt is because for most of the time that you're dieting, you're on such a restrictive diet that you can't have those things in your actual nutrition plan, right? Well, those things are off limits, they're bad.
Yeah, and like speaking from personal experience, what we would do is like leading up until Halloween, it was like, oh my God, like you put so much pressure on the one day to get all the candy in. You're like, you almost have it planned of like, I'm gonna be so good, I'm like restricting so hard, and then when Halloween comes, I'm gonna eat all the candy, and then right after that, I'm gonna go back the next day and be good. Like you almost like really mentally prepare for just that one day to like get it all in. And what happens is like you really overdo it that day because you've been so restrictive around Halloween, and you think that this is the one day that you can eat this stuff. And that's the problem with all these kind of diets that you're doing. If you are in that situation where you feel like on a holiday you have to get everything in all at once because this is your only chance, then you need to assess the diet that you're doing.
And like the problem with that too is like it's that one day where you feel like you have to get everything all in, but then you find out like, hey, one day wasn't enough. And even though you like say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna have so much willpower tomorrow, I'm not gonna have anything, you know, you get to tomorrow and then you're like, I really just want one, and then you have one, and then it turns into 2 or 4 or 5, and then you're like, I'm just gonna give myself a couple of days to enjoy it. And before you know it, you're eating thousands and thousands of calories, And then you're like right back to square one of like, shoot, I blew all my progress.
This is why we use calorie cycling with all of our clients, because you have structured high and low days where on your high days especially, you're able to fit in these special treats. And so you can have like Halloween candies whenever you want, whatever season you want, whatever day you want. Like me personally, I have like a mini Butterfinger almost every other day because it's something that keeps me sane. I actually like it. And like old me 10 years ago would have been like, oh my God, a Butterfinger like on a Monday. No, you can only have that on Halloween.
Yeah.
Right? But it's almost like exposure therapy of if you have something and you're exposed to it more, then there's not so much pressure on like when it comes to like when you're confronted with it, when the candy is in front of you, you're less likely to overdo it because you know that you can have it whenever you want. I can have this tomorrow. I had it yesterday. I can have it like every day the rest of this week and not feel guilty about it because it fits into my day.
Yeah, it almost like takes the specialness away from it because when you kind of look at Halloween candy, you're like, oh my gosh, this is my one day. It's so special. It's the only time I can have it. When we use calorie cycling, like you said, you do get that exposure therapy to it. So if you want to eat candy every single week, it almost takes that specialness away from the candy. That way, when it gets to Halloween, you're not looking at like, oh my God, this is the one day when I can have candy, so I need to like shove my face full of candy today, because you know that, okay, I can have a couple of candies today, and I can have some more tomorrow, and some more the next day, and the next day, and I can do that every day for the rest of my life. So like you said, it takes the pressure off. It makes it feel a lot less special. But for that reason, you're able to be a lot more moderate in your approach and not feel like you're constantly in this like white knuckling phase where you can't have anything, you can't have fun, you can't eat anything. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, all of the, like the dam breaks and then you're just shoving your face. You don't even know what's happening. And you just stay stuck in this loop like forever. The reality is that this is just Halloween that we're talking about right now, but we know that the holidays are coming up like fast and furious. They are going to be here before we know it. It's really like once Halloween goes, everything just like starts. It's like a fast pace, we're going, we're in it. And so this is really the time that we see that restrict and binge cycle and people overdoing it more than any other time of the year. So if you find yourself in that place and you're like, gosh, I don't want to do this for another holiday season, I actually want to be able to enjoy myself and enjoy my favorite treats, now is the perfect time for you to get started with calorie cycling. Just click the link in the description below. You can join our free calorie cycling Facebook community and download our calorie cycling quick start guide to figure out how you can plan your own calorie cycle and have all of the freedom and flexibility during the holiday season. Great. Put it in your pouch, stand in front of the camera. Bye-bye, buddy.